The scent of warm dust and static fills the air as a vibrant, paint-splattered coach flickers onto the screen. We once traveled through a psychedelic dreamscape every week, longing for a seat on that rainbow-colored journey. From 1970 to 1974, the ABC network transformed our living rooms into a shimmering, rhythmic sanctuary. A widowed matriarch with a theater-trained voice led her brood through a golden era of televised melody. Imagine the crisp chime of a tambourine accompanying 5 children with impossibly smooth harmonies. Their vehicle looked like a chaotic explosion at a pigment warehouse, a colorful beacon of our childhood wonder. Names like Shirley Jones and David Cassidy glowed with a soft, cinematic radiance alongside a cast of talented youngsters. They moved with a practiced grace that made us believe every note was their own. You can almost hear the phantom hum of guitar strings being plucked by small, energetic hands. While the visuals were perfectly staged, the true sounds remained a well-kept secret of the production studio. The sugary taste of pink bubblegum comes to mind when those infectious chart-topping melodies begin to play. They briefly outshone the famous 4 from Liverpool, leaving a trail of pop culture magic in their wake. Beneath the velvet costumes and rhythmic hand drums, a world of professional session players and complex family ties hummed. A massive influx of fan mail required a small army to process, marking a time of unprecedented stardom. The heavy weight of a spotlight often fell on a young man who wasn't sure he wanted the crown. We are exploring 15 hidden truths that will make you look at that iconic bus with fresh eyes. The faint aroma of old film reels lingers as we prepare to peel back the layers of this televised legend. These stories are the threads of a nostalgic tapestry that defined a generation. Before we dive deeper, please tap the like button and subscribe to join our journey through history. We have so many more treasures to share, and your presence makes this community special. The ticking of a vintage clock signals a revelation that will change how you view the band's stern manager. Let's find our collective joy and begin the countdown to the truth. Close your eyes and hear the lush manufactured harmonies of 1970's greatest musical illusion. Velvet suits and rhythmic tambourines hid a reality that was far different from the polished image on our screens. The soft glow of stage lights illuminated a family that seemed to descend from a pop music heaven. While the leading lady was a genuine star of the stage, the rest were part of a beautifully constructed dream. The leading man fought for his right to be heard while his siblings were silent partners in the recording booth. It remains a poignant reminder of the creative magic that happens behind the curtain. You can almost hear the professional hum of a high-end Los Angeles studio where the real magic happened. These tracks were built by elite musicians who remained invisible to the adoring public. The air in those sessions was thick with the brilliance of the legendary Wrecking Crew. These were the same hands that crafted the most iconic sounds of the 1960s, bringing a hidden depth to television. Listen to the deep, soul-stirring pulse of the bass guitar on their most famous track. That sophisticated sound didn't come from a red-headed child, but from a veteran master of the craft. The rich, layered textures of the background vocals were the work of a specialized group of studio singers. They were the secret ingredient that made those television melodies feel so grand and timeless. It was a world of smoke and mirrors where the music was actually a sophisticated masterclass in production. We fell in love with a sound that was far more complex than the show let on. The smell of fresh vinyl and the crackle of a turntable defined that historic November. Their signature song climbed to the very top, proving that a fictional family could conquer the real world. It was a moment of pure rhythmic triumph on the same charts once dominated by the biggest bands in history. We didn't care about the facts. We only cared about the feeling of that #1 hit. 50 years later, the melody still sparks a warm, nostalgic glow in the hearts of those who lived it. It was a magnificent piece of theater that we still cherish with every hummed note. The scent of old yearbooks brings us to the real-life family that served as the original inspiration. This TV phenomenon was modeled after a group of actual siblings who knew the bittersweet reality of the road. Think of the bright, sunshine-soaked harmonies of a genuine band from the late 1960s. They were the true architects of the bubblegum sound, paving the way for a televised revolution. Please take a moment to leave a comment about your favorite childhood show while we explore this boardroom drama. Producers saw a goldmine in that real-life story, and tried to bring the siblings into the spotlight. The quiet echoes of early negotiations suggested a show featuring the actual band members. But the distance between a family's heart and a studio's bottom line was vast. The sharp metallic taste of a missed opportunity lingers as the studio demanded a more famous face for the mother. They chose a legendary star of the stage over the family's biological matriarch. The real siblings stood their ground, insisting that their mother be part of the televised journey. It was a request born of loyalty that the studio simply wouldn't honor. The cold, final click of a closed deal signaled the end of the original family's involvement. Hollywood moved forward with a new cast, leaving the real story behind in the shadows. It was a classic transformation where the concept remained, but the souls were replaced by actors. They built a fictional world that would eventually become a merchandising empire. They hired a legendary actress and a cast of kids to play the roles in a freshly painted bus. The resulting show was a masterpiece of marketing that captured the world's imagination. The original band could only watch from afar as a fictionalized version of their lives became a global sensation. One boardroom choice in 1970 changed the landscape of pop culture forever. It's a wistful thought to imagine the authentic family that might have been the stars of our childhood. The success was massive, but it was a story borrowed from someone else's life. The rustle of a family tree reveals a hidden connection between the leading lady and her TV son. Most fans never knew they shared a home in the real world long before the show began. The matriarch was actually the stepmother of the young lead singer in their private lives. This secret bond added an invisible layer of depth to every scene they shared under the studio lights. Her real-life husband was a celebrated star of the theater, making the young actor part of a true performing dynasty. Though he earned the role fairly, his family ties certainly provided a solid foundation. The air on set must have felt electric as the 19-year-old rose to become a global icon. He was the face on every bedroom wall, with his stepmother watching it all unfold from across the stage. You can almost feel the heat of the flashbulbs and the deafening roar of crowds in every city. Fame at that scale is a heavy burden, especially when your family life is part of the performance. The quiet hum of tension behind the camera was a reality the public never suspected. Balancing a public image with private family dynamics created a complex atmosphere on the soundstage. The smell of hairspray and the cool breeze of the studio provided the backdrop for their unwavering professionalism. They kept their personal complications hidden, delivering joy to millions of viewers every week. There was a profound discipline in how they navigated the surreal world of teenage superstardom. The leading lady's stage experience helped anchor the show amidst the swirling chaos of fame. Looking back, the show remains a warm, shimmering memory of a family that felt like our own. It's a testament to their skill that the magic never broke despite the challenges behind the scenes. The soft scratch of a pen on a contract marks the moment a young actor's life changed forever. Initially, his voice wasn't even part of the plan for the band's musical success. Imagine the surprise when a hidden vocal talent was discovered during the production process. A show that nearly sidelined its greatest singer ended up defining an entire musical era. He was hired to simply be a handsome face, never knowing his voice would eventually echo through the decades. It was a stroke of luck that turned a sitcom actor into a true pop legend. The sterile hum of a silent studio booth masked a secret. He was merely a face hired to mimic a professional's perfect melody. Beneath the surface, the crackle of blues records and distorted rock riffs fueled a soul far deeper than any manufactured image. What began as a routine vocal test behind heavy studio doors soon transformed into an unexpected moment of pure, raw magic. A gritty, soulful resonance poured out, revealing a natural talent that no polished studio double could ever hope to replicate. The industry shifted instantly, turning his authentic sound into a global phenomenon that raced through every record player by '72. From bedroom walls to thunderous stadiums, his face became the backdrop of a generation, outshining nearly every other musical icon alive. His records moved in numbers that left even the biggest legends of the era standing in his commercial shadow. A made-up character had somehow become the world's most valuable star, yet such a meteoric rise always carries a hidden weight. The heavy price of adoration finally came calling on a fateful May afternoon under the gray, somber skies of a London stadium. Tens of thousands of voices merged into a roar as the sea of people pushed toward the light of the stage. If you remember these chaotic days, tell us your story in the comments. Panic replaced the music, leaving a wake of broken dreams and a young life cut tragically short in the frantic crush. That somber loss echoed across the ocean, leaving a permanent mark on the singer that no amount of applause could heal. Feeling more like a store-bought toy than a man, he grew weary of the hollow glare of the celebrity spotlight. He craved artistic respect, yet saw only his image on trinkets, while the reality of his fame became increasingly dangerous. He sought refuge in deeper melodies and complex characters, hoping the bright lights of Nevada might offer a fresh start. Though he never stopped, the ghost of his younger self remained an unshakable shadow that followed him into every performance. Humanity refused to let go of that colorful rolling icon, the legendary vehicle that defined an era of television history. Beyond the jokes and the fashion, the true heart of the show lived within the steel frame of that famous bus. Splashed with geometric patterns, the Chevrolet became a mobile masterpiece that captured the wandering spirit of the early 70s. Born as a simple discarded student transport from a local district, it was bought for a handful of dollars. $500 and a fresh coat of imagination turned a relic into a cultural beacon for millions of viewers. It was a rolling advertisement for joy, yet its ultimate destination remains one of Hollywood's most frustrating secrets. After years of delivering smiles to living rooms, the fantasy finally faded and the famous engine went silent. Once the cameras stopped rolling in '74, the vibrant colors began to fade as the bus slipped into the shadows. Stripped of its identity and coated in plain white, it became a background extra before disappearing into the fog of time. Rumors whispered of a rusted shell resting behind a small eatery, a ghost of its former self waiting to be found. Car lovers still argue over whether that decaying frame was the real deal or just a clever imitation of the legend. By '87, a similar vehicle was dragged toward a scrapyard, leaving fans to wonder if the dream was truly crushed. Truth remains elusive, as countless copies have emerged over the decades, blurring the line between history and imitation. Promotional stunts and television remakes only added to the mystery, leaving the true original lost in a sea of doubles. Even those who lived within its walls are uncertain of its fate, adding another layer to this enduring Hollywood riddle. There is no polished museum display or official record, only a haunting absence where a piece of our childhood should be. Generations later, the debate rages on in digital forums. Subscribe to join us as we uncover more lost treasures of the silver screen. Tinseltown often forgets its treasures, much like the mountain of 30,000 heartfelt messages that once flooded the mail. Long before Digital Like's fame was measured by the sheer physical weight of paper burying the local post office. Every week, tens of thousands of handwritten dreams arrived, creating a tide of affection that no one could have predicted. The numbers were staggering, as a global community of admirers grew faster than the mail could even be sorted. Entire teams were hired just to manage the flow of scented envelopes and secret confessions arriving by the truckload. Within those bins lay sketches, wedding pleas, and strange personal tokens from every small town across the map. From the heart of the Midwest to far-off cities, the world was unified by a single desperate need to reach him. He could only glimpse a tiny sliver of this devotion, while ghostwriters filled magazines with his supposed personal thoughts. The words fans cherished were often the work of distant editors, a standard trick of the star-making machine. Somewhere, a lonely teenager poured her heart onto pink paper, never knowing her secrets would end in a dusty bin. An anonymous clerk was the only witness to those fragile hopes, a stark contrast to the digital era we know today. While we count clicks, he counted cargo, though most of those heavy burdens of love remained forever unopened. The scent of fresh popcorn and heavy velvet stage curtains lingers in the air. This legendary woman once commanded the silver screen with a golden trophy in her hand. Do you remember when Hollywood's brightest star stepped into a simple suburban kitchen? Imagine the echoes of a grand theater filling with a soaring, pure melody. She wasn't just a television mother. She was the voice behind those sweeping Technicolor musical dreams. Those epic melodies still hum in the back of our minds, don't they? Close your eyes and hear a note so clear it feels like it could shatter glass. She was a natural wonder handpicked by the masters of melody to fill every corner of a room. It was a gift that needed no wires or speakers to be felt by the soul. The sharp hum of an electric guitar replaced the orchestral swell of the stage. Transitioning to a family rhythm meant softening that massive theatrical energy for the radio waves. It was a delicate dance between a Broadway star and the rising sun of a teenage heartthrob. Sunlight danced on the chrome of a wandering station wagon as the music began. Her powerful resonance had to find a new home alongside a softer, breezier vocal style. It was like trying to fit a grand piano into the cozy corner of a backyard clubhouse. The garage door creaked open to reveal a messy, hopeful rehearsal space. Her trained elegance felt almost too perfect for a simple homemade rock and roll vibe. She had to decide how to become part of the family harmony without drowning out the local spirit. Soft whispers of a nighttime lullaby drifted through the quiet hallway. She chose to breathe life into the lyrics with a gentle, understated grace that felt like home. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful voices are the ones that know exactly when to whisper? The needle dropped on a vinyl record with a comforting, familiar crackle. She smoothed out the dramatic peaks and let the music flow like a calm, steady river. Instead of reaching for the highest rafters, she reached straight for our hearts. The warm smell of a home-cooked meal greeted the weary travelers at the door. A master of her craft held back her brilliance just to make the family dream feel real. That kind of quiet confidence is the true mark of a legend. Warm, golden light bathed the recording booth in a soft, hazy glow. She tuned her magnificent instrument to match the heartbeat of the song perfectly. It was a selfless act of artistry that gave the music its enduring soul. The metallic snap of a tin lunchbox brings the memories flooding back instantly. If you still remember the feel of those glossy posters on your bedroom wall, you are part of our tribe. If you ever dreamed of playing along, tell us your favorite memory in the comments and give us a like. The rhythmic, upbeat shake of a tambourine cuts through the silence of the afternoon. Sharing your stories helps us keep these golden memories alive for everyone to enjoy. Take a second to tap that heart or leave a note for us below. A flickering television screen invites us back to a much simpler time. If you want to keep traveling down this road with us, make sure to join our family by hitting subscribe. We have so many more stories waiting just for you. The engine rumbles as the colorful bus pulls away from the curb. Let's look closer at the two oldest siblings who seem to share every secret in the world. But behind the laughter, a much quieter, more human story was unfolding. The sound of muffled giggles echoed behind the heavy studio doors. On the screen, they were the perfect pair of mischievous, harmony-loving companions. Yet, beneath the bell-bottoms and the bright smiles, things weren't quite so simple. The bright studio lights felt hot against youthful, nervous skin. One was just a teenager starting her journey while the other was becoming a global sensation overnight. At 16, the line between acting and real feeling can get very blurry. Heartbeats quickened during those long, exhausting afternoon rehearsals. A young girl found herself falling for the boy who played her brother under the gaze of millions. She eventually wrote about a longing that the cameras never quite caught. The cold silence of a dressing room followed the final cut of the day. He struggled with the weight of being a hero to the world while disappointing a close friend. It's a heavy burden to be the person everyone wants, but no one truly knows. Old ink on a faded page can sometimes sting when it's read aloud years later. Reflecting on those private moments in public caused a rift that was very hard to bridge. Life doesn't always have a happy ending once the cameras stop rolling. The dizzying neon whirl of a carnival ride captures that teenage chaos perfectly. Imagine working all day with your secret crush while the entire world screams his name. It is a lonely place to be when the fantasy is your everyday reality. The dusty road of nostalgia eventually leads to a quiet fork in the path. Once the final song was played in 1974, she chose a way far away from the spotlight. Some memories are better kept in the soft shadows of the past. The quiet, rhythmic rustle of turning pages replaced the roar of the fans. She avoided the bright lights of reunions, preferring to look toward what was coming next. Only rarely did she step back into that world of colorful buses. The crisp air of a courtroom drama brought a new kind of professional respect. She transformed herself into a powerhouse of the small screen, winning accolades for a whole new role. Her eyes were always fixed on the horizon. The soft click of a heavy door closing signals a life kept strictly private. She built a world for herself that wasn't meant for public consumption or gossip. Does knowing the truth change how you see those old episodes today? A bittersweet melody plays softly in the background as we look back. Real teenage heartache was woven into the fabric of those scripted, playful moments. It gives those glances a depth we never understood when we were children. The glow of a television set lit up living rooms across the entire nation. It wasn't a scandal, it was just the painful beauty of growing up in the public eye. Sometimes, the most touching stories are the ones never written down. The roar of a rocket engine drowns out the gentle acoustic guitar. By 1974, the world was changing, and the studio had a wild new idea. How do you keep the magic alive when the kids grow up? The scent of ozone and stardust filled the writer's room that year. They needed a way to keep the music playing in a world that was moving too fast. The solution was as far-fetched as a trip to the stars. The metallic hum of a spaceship door sliding open greeted the family. They were transported to the year 2200, trading the suburbs for the deep galaxy. It was a Saturday morning dream brought to life by legends. The scratchy sound of a pencil on an animator's desk created a new reality. If anyone could make a folk band fly, it was the creators of Stone Age Families and Talking Dogs. They traded the dusty roads for the Milky Way. The neon lights of a future city replaced the quiet, tree-lined streets of home. Suddenly, the 23rd century was the backdrop for their family harmonies. Every family needs a change of scenery, even if it's on a different planet. The whirring of a flying car echoed through the cold vacuum of space. Even in the future, that iconic, colorful bus was still rolling along the stars. Some things, like a great beat and wide pant legs, never go out of style. The crackle of an intercom warned of an approaching space storm ahead. A young boy's wild inventions were always causing trouble among the distant stars. It was a chaotic, cosmic adventure that felt worlds away from the garage. A familiar voice was missing from the choir in the clouds above. The teenage star decided to stay on Earth, leaving a double to take his place in the booth. Even his sister's voice only lingered for a couple of missions. The soft click of a microphone turning off marked another quiet departure. New voices stepped in to fill the shoes of the mother and the oldest daughter. The family was still there, but the heart of it had changed. The thumping of drumsticks and the laughter of the younger ones remained steady. A few of the original kids were still buckled in for the long ride through the stars. It was a strange animated echo of the family. The faint static of a television left on too late hums in the quiet room. This cosmic experiment only lasted 16 episodes before disappearing into the ether of history. It was a snapshot of a decade that didn't know when to stop. The smell of old Saturday morning cereal and cold milk comes to mind. The 70s had a strange obsession with turning every hit show into a space odyssey. It was a time when anything seemed possible, even a folk band in orbit. A silver rocket ship glimmered on the horizon of our childhood imagination. If you were a star on Earth, the next logical step was a base on the moon. It was a wild, wonderful era of television history. The sound of a drum kit being rearranged caught everyone off guard. Be honest with yourself. Did you notice when the youngest brother suddenly looked different? One day, he was there, and the next, a new face was holding the sticks. The sight of a shy boy with a bowl cut defined the first year. He was the quiet one in the back, keeping the beat for the family band. He looked just like every other kid in an elementary school hallway. The sudden transition felt like a glitch in the old film reel. By the second year, a new young man had taken over the rhythm section completely. Fans were left scratching their heads wondering what happened to the first drummer. The hollow thud of a drumstick hitting the floor signaled a big change. The original boy decided that the bright lights weren't for him after all. He just wanted to go back to being a normal kid under the sun. The transition was as smooth and quiet as a fading summer sunset. Most of us were so caught up in the music that we didn't even notice the switch. It's a reminder of how easily the magic of television tricks the eye. The soft hum of a television being turned off lingers in the air today. These little secrets make us love these old stories even more than we did then. It's the hidden history that keeps our nostalgia burning bright. The soft buzz of the television set hums in the background while an unfamiliar youth occupies the screen. No farewell was uttered, and no vacation was mentioned. The previous lad merely vanished into thin air. Isn't it fascinating how we used to accept such sudden transformations? Hear the metallic snap of the cymbals as a fresh performer took his place on the wooden bench. During that era prior to global connectivity, these swaps occurred without a whisper of public outcry. No one reached for a fountain pen to complain to the broadcasting studio about the change. We simply took a breath and assumed the boy had matured overnight. Imagine the thud of heavy boxes being loaded onto a truck while the cameras were dark. Real life pulled the first actor toward a different horizon, leaving an empty spot in the family portrait. The scent of hairspray and polyester hung heavy in a decade where logic mattered far less than the wardrobe. If the costume looked right, the face didn't have to match, which makes one wonder what else was hidden. If you enjoy these trips back in time, please subscribe to our channel. The rhythmic creak of a revolving door continued to spin well beyond the percussion section. As the audience began to fade, the creators reached for a desperate, time-honored tactic. The pitter-patter of small feet announced the arrival of a tiny star with a mop of golden curls. Suddenly, the 4-year-old Ricky Seagal was the centerpiece of every frame. He appeared as the lad from next door, drifting into the group's light like a moon that had always been there. There was no map for his arrival. He just stood in the center of the magic. The blinding pop of a flashbulb captured a miniature professional who required no introduction or development. It felt quite peculiar to feel a sense of unease toward such a joyful little face. The high-pitched giggle of a toddler signaled a shift toward a much younger, sweeter atmosphere. Every viewer felt the change as the cool energy of the band turned into a playground. The scratch of a graphite pencil on a corporate ledger replaced the heart of the story. It felt less like a tale being told and more like a graph being managed by men in gray suits. Voices in high offices shouted for more dimples to save the day, yet the charm couldn't stop the inevitable. The curtains closed forever before that very year reached its end. Tell us in the comments if you remember that final episode. The sour ring of a guitar out of tune echoes when a group relies on babies to keep the beat. This brings us to entry number 5. The strange moment an award ceremony lost its mind. The faint hiss of a spinning record precedes a shock that still bothers the elite today. During 1971, the televised household found themselves on the ballot for a prestigious music award. The heavy weight of a gold trophy was at stake in the category for the most promising debut. It was a title meant for those who lived for the craft, not those created for a script. The gatekeepers of the industry looked at the studio experts and the actors and declared them worthy. It was as though the fiction had become far more potent than the reality. The velvet smooth vocals of a famous brother and sister duo eventually claimed the prize. Real-world artistry finally triumphed over the illusions of the small screen. The hazy glow of a studio lamp reminds us how thin the line was between the act and the art. We didn't care where the performance ended and the true music began. The sliding sound of vinyl being sold by the millions meant the traditional standards simply dissolved. The officials ignored the fine print as long as the world kept humming along. The metallic zing of a guitar string raises a deep mystery about what makes a musician real. No regulation required the person on the jacket to be the one making the sound. The roar of a cheering crowd makes us wonder if the truth actually matters when the melody is perfect. The affection was genuine, even if the group itself was a beautiful dream. The sweet aroma of success followed the winners home, yet I imagine a different reality where that colorful vehicle holds the prize. It is a whimsical thought that lingers like a favorite chorus. Somewhere a bright trophy sits on a metal dash catching the afternoon sun through the windshield. Let us move to number 4, the neighborhood that was built on a lie. The smell of freshly mowed lawns and the sight of a rainbow-colored bus painted a picture of a perfect life. It felt like a sanctuary of sunshine and rehearsing in the garage. The hollow thud of a footstep reveals that these walls were merely painted wood in a California lot. The world we loved was actually a masterpiece of construction on the Warner Brothers ranch. The warmth of the asphalt radiated from a specific path known as Blondie Street. It was a place where the American dream was manufactured every single day. The scent of old lumber and fresh paint clings to a stretch of land that has seen more stars than the night sky. This single patch of earth hosted the most famous homes in history. The chime of a magical spell echoed just down the road where a witch once lived. That very same pavement felt the footsteps of different worlds colliding. The swirling smoke of a genie's lamp once drifted past these very same windows. Every house was a chameleon changing its look for every new production. The heat rising from the backlot pavement tells a story of genies and magic sharing the same space. At different times, the same path was used for wishes and rock stars. Imagine the vibration of a bass guitar against the same wood that once housed spirits and sorcery. It was all a grand stage built for our collective memories. Please give us a like if you remember these classic sets. The upbeat chime of a tambourine brings us to number 3, the song that lives in your soul. If the name is spoken, your mind immediately begins to play the rhythm. The feeling of a sunny morning washes over you as the invitation to be joyful begins. That tune has been a permanent guest in your thoughts since your earliest years. The sound of a needle skipping reminds us that what you are singing is actually a replacement. The journey began with a very different message than the one we know. The crisp air of September 1970 carried a different melody when the bus first appeared. That famous anthem of happiness hadn't even been written yet. The bouncy notes of a piano played a track about the act of performing itself. The energy was identical, but the words were a literal description of their lives. The sound of voices blending together lacked that certain spark that turns a song into a legend. It was a simple introduction rather than the anthem we eventually adored. The scratch of a pencil on paper marked the moment Wes Farrell and Danny Jansen changed everything. They sat down to reinvent the very beginning of the show. The bright burst of a brass section announced a new era for the opening credits. This fresh version captured the hearts of every child sitting in front of the set. The taste of sugary cereal on a Friday night is forever linked to that feeling of pure joy. It became so legendary that we forgot there was ever an original version. The grainy texture of an old film reel is where the first song still lives, hidden away. Hearing it now is like listening to a ghost of a memory you can't quite place. The haunting echo of a distant radio makes the old version feel like a stranger's story. They didn't destroy the past, they just refined it into something unforgettable. The persistent ring of a catchy chorus proved they had created a masterpiece of television history. It became a melody that defined a generation and never lost its magic. The flash of a photographer's bulb leads us to number 2, the famous faces hiding in the shadows. Before they were legends, they were just guests on a colorful bus. The smell of popcorn in a cinema reminds us that today's icons were once just faces in a crowd. You would be amazed to see who was waiting for their big break back then. Imagine scents of hairspray or studio dust where future icons first stood.